Listen, to all you prospective Kinnan pilots out there, please consider not just activating Kinnan the first second you have the ability to do so. Please, like you can wait. Is this turn 1 Necro okay? Is that okay? Can I have this? Please. Please. Oops, made 5 treasures. Did I win?
Let's get into the topic for today. I have with me Comede Ian. He is one of the greatest competitive EDH tournament grinders and coaches and comedic minds of our time, and he has joined me today to talk about how hard different commanders make your butthole clench. What we are going to be doing today is a clenchability tier list for the top 16 commanders post bans as told by EDH Top 16. So the tiers we have today that we communally determined were Diamond Producer for the top, Deep Clench, Kegel King, Trickle Down Economics, I'm sure we all understand what I mean by that, and then Trusting Farts. So these are commanders where you're just letting it rip, everything's going to be fine. What could go wrong? Now the ad break's over, we can actually get into the tier list. So we're going to start with Tymna and Kraum, or as I understand it, every CEDH player's sleep paralysis demon. Ian, tell me a little bit about the average Tymna Kraum experience.
Just the most doing stuff commander pairing right now, right? It's got your Underworld Breach, you got your Thassa's Oracle. I think when people think of high-powered magic, right? When they think of like these broken things, they're like, oh yeah, Thassa's Oracle, it's Mana Consultation, Underworld Breach, right? Like that's Tymna Kraum, ad nauseum, etc. Really solid, right? Like the idea is that you sort of just play 4-color good stuff. Green doesn't really need to be there. And back when Dockside was in the format, green was considered the worst color at the time. And now it's much more looking like red has Breach and Deflecting Swat, and that's really every positive we can say about it.
That's all you need.
So yeah, it was just this beautiful 4-color pile, and it still works, right? Like it's still very much doing putting up results. It's not as crazy as it was when Dockside was legal, but yeah, it is generically you have these 2 great card advantage engines in the command zone, and then the rest of your cards are just kind of good. Like they just do good stuff.
So is this because I don't actually know which deck it is, but I know there's a deck referred to as Blue Farm. Often
that is the Blue Farm. Yes.
All right, this is the Blue Farm. So my next question: has a Tymna Kraum player, after the framework was established, have they ever made an interesting decision in card choice, or is it all just like, oh well, my favorite counterspell is this one, and so I slot in that one?
Up. Yeah. No, I think 98% of Tymna Kraum players are within a 6-card variable. Like, if I'm being frank, like it is a very, I don't know why that deck in particular, people are really afraid to innovate. It took one of the most fundamental bans of all time to really start making people look at the deck and go like, well, we could try some different cards. Like where you're tense, you're clenched, right? But at the end of the day, it is not going to fully change how I play the game, right? Like it is not going to fundamentally shift it. It is because I know like, oh hey, there's another mid-range deck in the pod, like sweet, like they'll probably help me interact at some point, until they don't.
So it's like maybe Guitar Hero on a hard difficulty setting where the chords are always going to be the same.
I think there's a lot of Tymna Kraum players who show up and perform, but there's also a lot of Tymna Kraum players who show up and do perfectly average or below average, and that's what keeps the deck sort of fair. Is that like you do like you can stumble into a win, but it's not perfectly free, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the first contingency anybody ever plans for is what the fuck do I do about the Tymna Kraum
Exactly.
player? That makes sense. Then let's move on to Tymna and Thrasios. I'm noticing a fucking pattern.
Yeah, Tymna is good magic card. Fun fact.
Card in hand, make good, win game. Yes.
I really feel like those were some wise words shared by a very wise individual. And card in hand in good, make game, win. Probably very easy, I think, you know?
Yes, big easy. Big easy if true. Since we've already covered this, I'm going to go out on a fucking huge limb and say probably pile of pretty good cards. So what would convince somebody to trade red for green, or trade Kraum for Thrasios?
The dynamic between those two decks, right? And like the reason that there's a delineation there is because Tymna Kraum's much better at not caring about its board state, right? Like for example, if there's a board wipe, a Toxic Deluge, a Cyclonic Rift, whatever it is, Tymna Kraum recovers disturbingly well, right? Because both of their win conditions, Underworld Breach and Thoracle, don't really care about having a board stake, right? So where Tymna and Kraum is, as I said, like kind of like this middle pattern of the format, right? Tymna and Thrasios has a higher potential ceiling, but they have a lower floor. They're the deck that they suffer really bad for the board wipe, right? If you hit them with a Toxic Deluge, suddenly their Gaia's Cradle doesn't even make mana, right? Like that's kind of the downside you see there. Whereas, and sometimes it's not as fast, right? Red does help with those types of things. Although Tymna and Thrasios is capable of winning on turn 3 like everybody else, right? And also plays Oracle Console,
Oh
right?
yes, like all of us. Like all of us. Okay. So would you put this as just comparable to Tymna and Kraum and Deep Clench, or do you feel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna put. I can't say the name of the tier without laughing. I think I'm gonna put it in Kegel King because of the reason that I think Tymna and Thrasios is more skill intensive. I think you have to be a better pilot to do the bare minimum with that deck, whereas Tymna and Kraum, you can, as I mentioned, be utterly incompetent and still win a game. Like, they both have the capability of just being like, oh, Grand Abolisher, Thassa's Oracle, Console, haha, I win the game. But I feel like, at the end of the day, Tymna and Thrasios is like, oh, I have to plan when I play Dorks, when I play all these things, like when to tap for mana, how to best, do all this stuff. Whereas Tymna and Kraum is just like, all right, I play the thing that draws me cards. Now I have 8 instants in my hand. Is that enough to breach? No? All right, I'll wait the next turn.
Have you guys heard of Mystic Remora? I think I just discovered a card.
Why does nobody talk about this card?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mango Money Moment, a new segment that exists only because YouTube has told us that if their automatic mid-roll placer doesn't believe that my video has enough dead air in it to constitute a transitional phase, they will not put monetized ads in the middle, which can really cut into the editor's leak budget. So we're going to have these moments where we just stop and stare for a little bit.
Then we will move on to Kinnan Bonder Prodigy.
I will say it is very funny. There's a lot of these like truisms that we know about casual, like green is busted, all of that kind of stuff, and it really does get flipped on its head in CEDH, I think, because wherever you hit that like fairness threshold, it just it goes out the window, So like a decks like True Lane or Hullen, right? That was one of those cards that like absolutely wrecked casual commander, right? But in CEDH, it's considered like one of the good guys, like it's a very weird space. Same with like Derevi.
My understanding is that fighting with creatures on board is coming back a little bit post-ban, but even still compared to casual, it's like moving from medieval warfare to drone strikes. My amateurish understanding of how Kinnan works is you mulligan desperately for a mana rock that goes infinite, you go infinite, and then you play the entire director's cut of Pacific Rim on people. Is that about how it goes, or does it get more complex than that?
Upsettingly accurate, I will say,
This is it then, CEDH, where everybody has extremely efficient interaction.
Yeah,
and
I will say creature interaction is like, funny enough, criminally low in CEDH, right? Like it's one of the weird ironies of the format where people are so ready to battle it out on the stack, but then sometimes when it comes to like, hey, they just played a big guy, everyone's like, yeah, that's really freaking blows, huh? All right, pass. Yeah. So you've inadvertently walked into the biggest hot topic of Kinnan, which is it is the biggest skill ceiling, skill floor deck in the format by far. It is like the other decks that have that level of power, like Kinnan can be better than the best decks of the format, right? It also can be so horribly bad that you look at the person playing it and go like, why are you doing the things you're doing? like it's just it can really look rather atrocious. Especially listen to all you prospective Kinnan pilots out there, please consider not just activating Kinnan the first second you have the ability to do so. Please, like you can wait.
No, you can't. Don't listen to him.
Me want zoom go. No put card in hand. Play big thing on board. By law of averages, I feel like you have to put it in Kegel King, right? Because it is specifically like if you could cut the picture of Kinnan in half and put one in one in the other, I would 100% agree with that assessment.
I'm gonna put it in Trusting Farts just for no reason. I don't hate Simic. But I'm just going to leave it down there. But I do think we should where we can, we should try to give respect to like these very big splits in how bad it could be. Because I'm sure there's some games you get put in where 2 turns in, they flip main phase 2, hit a Mirror Shell Crab, and you're just like, okay, I'm on cruise control with respect to this player now, versus...
I don't want to hear you say fucking Mirror Shell Crab again until the end of the stream.
Okay, so now we have Rograkh, which my exposure to CEDH is mostly like memes and the scant Reddit thread. I know people hate this motherfucker. My understanding is he is the like meth smoker / crack sniffer of the format. Is that correct, or is the internet lied to me?
Would be hard pressed to disagree. Yeah. If there is, well, it's just so crazy, you know, because like I find this, it's a deck that I truly loathe nowadays. But I was also the first person to ever make top cut with this deck.
Oh my god! Oh,
yeah.
So these are the skeletons in your closet.
Oh yeah, for sure. It is and I thought it was so fun. I had a great time playing it. If you think that it's weird that there are social interactions in CEDH, then this is the deck for you. Because this is the beep beep zoom zoom deck of the format. It's a really fun deck to play. That's the worst part about it. It's a blast, right? But the problem is it's a bit of a skill ceiling, skill floor kind of deck. But two things kind of happen. Either A, they're really, really good and they will just put you in the ground, hence full diamond, right? Or B, they will consistently be validating decisions because it advances their plan that just absolutely send the table into king makes suicide mode. And to be honest, that part's pretty high up there, right? And so like, I think when you see a lot of like consistent grinders and players experience this deck, a lot of them get frustrated by Rograkh because it feels like sometimes it's not even really a manifestation of like who's the better player in the pod. It's more just like who either A, people just, they had the natural multiple pieces of interaction, or B, the next person in turn order wins because, you know, Rograkh jammed and everyone had a great time stopping them. And then the next person goes like, all right, well, I had this win condition. Everyone's exhausted because Rograkh killed themselves on the final fortune turn. Cool.
Yeah, never pop off first is one of the other like adages I've heard about CEDH. And Rograkh is the person being like, I am going to go first, but I'm so fast that maybe I will just kick you in the dick before you can respond to me.
It's super fair. It's like, it's you hear someone go, never pop off first, and then the Rograkh pops up with a line of cocaine in its nose, and they're like, sorry, I didn't hear you. What was that? I think there is a public perception that Silas is you really just being like, well, it's been fun, boys. But there is a secret second Silas, which is just like, I'm just gonna keep putting cards in my hand for long enough, but they won't attack me because I got a death toucher. Ooh, I'm such a bad boy. And so like that's the second secret Silas.
That is also 100% the voice this guy would make. I think that's
Silas?
That's the best Silas voice I've ever heard.
Oh man, it'd be so bad if someone came and attacked me. I'd give him a little death touch pokey.
No. And next we have one you've talked about shortly, Sisay, Weatherlight Captain.
Hell yeah. Sisay.
What the fuck does this deck do?
You don't like Trade Binder Typal? Come on. Sisay is a deck that takes some of those random things that you're like, wow, why did they ever print this random legend? It's never seen play anywhere, not even in its standard format. I have no idea what this card even does, and realistically speaking, it's a waste of ink. And then Sisay goes, well, but if you could tutor it out of your library at instant speed, it would be pretty good, wouldn't it? And you're like, Sisay, please, like, go back to bed. You've been malnourished, you're lacking sleep, and she's like, no. It can win at instant speed with 6 other cards. And you're like, Sisay, please.
Is Sisay the home for people, the CEDH home for people who want to exist in magical Christmas land of these sort of ridiculous combos that have no hope existing anywhere else?
If it makes you sad that you can't play Planeswalkers in a multiplayer format, this is the deck for you. Like if you're that kind of player. Sisay, I mean, because like one of the main combos is literally just you go from Amanatu, the Fate Shifter, a precon commander, into Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh, a 5-mana uncastable legendary planeswalker, into Oath of Teferi, a 5-mana enchantment that allows you to double activate. And that's considered one of the best win cons in Sisay, to be clear. That is one of the cleanest wins available in this archetype. I cannot stress that enough. So yeah, specifically because he can take activated abilities of things, right? So Amanatu comes in, flickers whatever permanent would make a Sisay amount of mana, and then Nicol Bolas comes in, flickers whatever permanent would make a Sisay amount of mana, and then Oath of Teferi comes out and goes, well, now you can do that twice, and then so they flicker each other infinitely. You flicker whatever might have, and you just every card in your deck, you're just like, all right, play that for free. Have a good day.
That's horrible. That is one of the most.
Oh, that's the cleanest line.
Yeah,
I cannot stress that enough. I love Sisay. I'm very familiar with the lines. I respect it enough at all times, I feel like, where I can go like, all right, dissect the line, dissect the line, dissect the line. For me, it's only probably about a trickle down. If you do not know, and this is the tough part, right now. If you have no idea what Sisay does, you should be clenching to make multiple diamonds. You are probably already dead.
Yeah. And now we'll move on to the other knowledge check, Magda, which is, I'm presuming, how bad did the bans hit Magda? Because I know that the Godo players all went into medically induced comas to try to imagine a time where their deck still worked. But was Magda impacted by the bans, or did it survive?
People really thought Magda was impacted by the bans. And Dockside was a line of convenience for Magda. Magda did not care. Magda's doing fine. I will say, because the game slowed down a little bit, Magda's getting a few less cheese wins, right? Because I think a lot of people were like, all right, we got to be ready for the turn 2 Nas. We got to be ready for all these things. And Magda would be like, oops, made 5 treasures. Did I win? Yeah. It's definitely another knowledge check like we talked about. But as long as you don't let them activate Magda when you have an artifact dwarf on the battlefield, you're okay. If you had to rank the monocolor commanders on this list, right? I would say of the monocolor commanders, it's probably one of the few diamonds, right? But given the context of the entire format, I think it's a high trickle down, where I respect the deck and I respect good pilots on it. But if you know what you're doing, you can dismantle it with a certain amount of grace, right? And it's a little bit easier than a deck like Sisay, for example, at potentially displaying some of its weaknesses, right? I know some really, really brilliant Magda pilots who just lose sometimes because they're playing mono red, Nice. It doesn't mean it's not a good contender in the format. I've actually been one of the deck's biggest advocates of hey, this deck keeps showing up and putting up work. We have to respect it. But doesn't mean I'm gonna be like, oh man, Magda's in the pot.
Yeah. After that, we have who we talked about a little bit earlier, Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow, which I think is, I've actually played with a Yuriko CEDH deck, and it made me deeply sad. Because it was just very much, or at the table I was in, it was very much, I had to mulligan to 1-drop unblockable creature, a counter spell, and then just fucking prayer.
I think I've lost to Yuriko once.
I'll just slide that in Trust and Farts then. I'll just slide that.
Yeah, ever. To be clear, I do mean ever. And yeah, because they just had Natural Thoracle with double protection. I think the deck is a great learning deck. I think it's actually because it is relatively straightforward. It's how you would build the casual version, right? Except for you have Thoracle Consult in there, and then sometimes you go I'm going to combat. Maybe I should put something that costs 15 on top of my deck, so it hurts them for 15. Yeah, you don't have to rewrite history to figure out that line, right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist. Yeah, sometimes it's good. The thing is, the deck is very hard to socially maneuver. I think you need a really, really smart pilot to make it work, and I think those are in short supply of pilots who are good enough to make Yuriko work and pilots who are willing to take the time to make Yuriko work.
Right, if you're good enough to make Yuriko work, you'd probably rather win with a deck that's more well-positioned, which I think your remark is making me consider the interesting dichotomy of, in casual Commander, each opponent effects are really highly valued because life totals are so high that attempting to chip down 120 at a time, really bad. But then you get into CEDH, suddenly hitting everyone symmetrically feels really bad because you have 3 people with rocket launchers that you would prefer to not all point at you at the same time.
And also, then you immediately kickstart the fire under them, which they go, oh, we're on a clock. I have to make rash game actions and cannot justify waiting. which is where Yuriko thrives. And this is, if you are a prospective Yuriko pilot out there, I will throw out this nugget for you. Do not tutor the big thing to the top of your deck until it is killing them. Because I see this happen too many times. And if it flips incidentally, sure, whatever. Congratulations, you got the high roll. Rock and roll, right? But the Yurikos I've seen succeed, they flip over a ninja, they flip over maybe a 4-drop every once in a while, they flip over one of their 7s, they're like, oh, finally a good hit, right? And then eventually they're like, all right, and now it's the last turn, and I have a Vamp Tutor and 3 counter spells, and I'm gonna put this card on top of my library, and you're gonna get domed for 15 because everyone's at like 12 life respectively, right? That's the successful pattern. But if you fire off that 15, everyone goes, well, now we're all at 12 life, and we've got to bury this Yuriko player or win in this turn cycle. And it's up to you which one it is right now.
It is funny to me that both the 2-color commanders we've looked at are big number he, even though they are on doing it in totally different ways. They are just on big number simulator. Yeah. Make brain happy chemical. Yes.
Yeah. It's either Cheatin Kaiju or spell cost many mana, but not as many mana as look like spell cost.
None of this would be possible without support from our highest tier Patreon members, so please join me and Little Nadu as we take a moment to thank Badger King, Sussedin, Christian B, Ryan A, Adam S, Solar Movie, Biggest Dickus, Kyle, Jess HW, Alpha Dog 2064, Crimson Viper, Zelenor, Otterfire, Dad Out for Milk, Kyler P, Bolus Brigade, Derek H, Phelan, B Leave, Dungeon Masters Consortium, Zach G, Bobby Joe Lord, Talamar Von Geist, Troper and their 37 different identities, Bradley T, Bo, Beefcake, and Silky Wilkie. Thank you all and enjoy the video.
Moving on, we have Biggest Stinkus, or Tivit, Seller of Secrets, which I know that he was presumed dead on arrival once Jeweled Lotus left us, but is not hurting as bad. Like the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. So how is he living post-ban?
The thing is, pre-ban, you'd have to go like, oh man, I can't dump all these artifacts and enchantments because there's a dock side, right? And then when that went away, it's like, yeah, I can't get the turn 2 Tivits, which were always usually the wrong thing to do anyways. Instead, I can now just play, like turn 2 Smothering Tide, which gets me a turn 3 Tivit with counterspell backup. Turns out it's pretty good still. Like, it turns out getting a 6-drop that then refuels mana and gives you card advantage is still a really good thing to have in the command zone. And also, by the way, it has a 1-card combo in case concerned that you weren't able to win the game fast enough. It's not the fastest deck in the format, I will say. Like, a lot of people adopt the traditional control role with it, right? But Tivit still slaps. Like, it's still, Esper is busted, just period, right? Esper is the best core right now because you have your silence effects, you have your black tutors, you have your blue interaction. Really hard to mess with that.
So for Tivit then, if it's control, that feels maybe stressful but on rails. So where does that fall on these tiers of how it's going to develop and you just don't like it?
I think it's a trickle down deck, right? Like, I think in the sense that it's a very solid deck, it's very respectable, and a really good pilot can show up and make good results with it. The only time, actually, I'm going to put it in Kegel, because here's why. Because as someone who really likes creature combos, there's a lot of times where there are Tivit players who may not be the best Tivit players, who show up and they go, I'm going to stacks out all those creature decks. Here's my Curse Totem. And then the blue farm player goes, cool. Oh, man, you really showed them. Anyways, here's my Underworld Breach. And so Tivit does a really good job sometimes of taking out 2 players and not 3 players in the pod. And that's why I'll Kegel it, because sometimes I go, please don't be that kind of Tivit player.
Sometimes you're going to fuck this up, not in such a way that you win, but in the perfect way for Jeremy to come through and get their win.
Yeah, Blue Farm Jeremy, absolutely always out here, just ready to be like, thanks for the Curse Totem, brother.
So after Tivit, we're back to the partners, but in a new pairing, the Sacrificial Goblin Child Rograkh and Thrasios. So the only Teemier deck I think we have in this top 16 popularity. So why no draw card, make good, win? Why give up make good, draw card, win good?
0 no cost mana, 0 free good. No, Rograkh is really, really solid. It's very explosive. It plays the mid-range kind of thing that Tymna and Thrasios does, but like starting on turn 1, right? Like, for example, I played against a pilot in the last tournament who ended up going undefeated until the finals match on Rograkh, who went turn 1, played Rograkh, played Gaia's Cradle, used the green because I have Rograkh to play another mana dork. And I was like, okay. And then followed up with a 1 ring on turn 2. And I was like, oh, so we're dead. Yeah, cool. Sounds great. That's where Rograkh comes in. This is another ceiling floor deck, though. I've seen a lot of players, like, this is another one where I would vehemently cut it in half, and then it's either a big, airy, trusting fart or full diamond, because I think Sam Black has won every tournament he's shown up to. I mean, and of course, he's Hall of Famer Sam Black, right? But this year, he has literally gone undefeated with this Rograkh list.
To harken back to the original pilot discussions we had, are Rograkh players making a lot of unique card decisions, or is it all down to mulligans and figuring out how you sort of like, I guess,
no,
jump
it's
out
actually
the
one of the
gates?
most customizable top tier decks in the format, right? Like, there's a lot of infinite mana combos that can do the Thrasios things, but like, as I mentioned, the one that I saw in the finals the other day, like, was playing only Snap, Eternal Witness, Gaia's Cradle as its only infinite, and then it was a Turbo Breach deck. And I've seen Rograkh, it doesn't even touch Breach, right? So like, there's actually a lot of differentiation there. Like, a lot of the Sam Black lists have been like using Valley Flood Caller and like a bunch of random otters from like standard and stuff to just like make infinite mana through like a bunch of weird bouncing casting spells, all that kind of junk. And so like, there's absolutely many customizations for this archetype. And I think your individual customizations and comfort with play patterns will 100% determine how you feel about playing this deck.
That's so funny to me that it's just like Turbo Breach, and also look at this cute little guy from Bloomborough.
Yeah, look
Like,
at his otter.
You know, Flash enabler, untap enabler, so like, yes, good, but also just here's this fucking 2/2 otter.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll call that Trusting Farts, and then Mango, here, I'm gonna put this up in Diamond producer, if we could do a Unless You're Sam Black. And then we
There's a couple others. I want to shout out Pigeon, a couple
Oh.
other people. But yeah, I mean, Unless You're Sam Black does feel like a pretty good qualification there too.
Next we have the Union Head, Najeela.
Yeah.
Which is our second, I think, 5-color appearance, but I'm betting it's meaningfully different from. I doubt they're doing Planeswalker combo in Najeela.
No. I am so bored of this deck. It is played the same way since I've seen it. And like, there's been some iterations of Najeela. The most fun I've ever had with Najeela, I'll throw this out there. I was playing 5-color Nadu Breakfast inside of Najeela in the last format. And I will say that was some of the most fun I've ever had with Magic. Nadu in the 99 was much more fun of a card. I think this is like a very common understood thing amongst CEDH players. Like 99 Nadu actually led to some really cool play patterns. 99 in the zone, everyone was like, yeah, we get it. You have 20 cards in hand.
Yeah, he's like a crazy little treat in the 99. In the command zone, it's like you have one thing and you're either going to do it and we get honked, or you don't do it and you are a deflating whoopee cushion.
Very matchup dependent. It's the most affected by the format. And there's a reason it's been kind of quiet since the bans, because it's like, yeah, hey, people are playing creatures again. You're like, you know, is it worth it to trade 2 mana dorks for a Najeela? Probably.
God.
Bonk.
Okay, so we'll say that this varies on the list depending on what month we're in. In today's meta, is this trickle down or is it a fart truster?
I think a good pilot can make it up to even a Kegel. But right now, I would assume the average time I sit against a Najeela deck, I'm just fully man, it's hard.
Right, because it is such a it sounds kind of like it is a Voltron, not in the traditional Magic sense, but it's like this cursed amalgamation of so many different things that like maybe they just had a frag grenade up their ass the whole time and the room's about to explode, and so it's difficult to get like the most solid read.
Yeah, I would feel that I would be doing a disservice to the deck to call it a fart. But I still, like, there's a part of me that disrespects the deck so much that I'm willing to call it an easy breezy, you know? But I think it is, I think at the end of the day, I have to, if I'm being like truly honest, it's a trickle down type deck for sure.
Following that, we have, oh God, we have the other commander tax cheating shithead, Derevi, the bird.
Hell yeah.
So is this always My understanding of it is always evil, terrible stacks deck. Is that what it always is, or does it have turbo potential?
Yeah, not since 2013. I think has Derevi actually been that bad, because the stacks deck's actually pretty bad.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
what is Derevi doing?
Derevi's a lot more mid-range nowadays. So it's a lot of like, I go to combat, I have a bunch of mana dorks, I hit, and I make like 15 mana on my turn. And it doesn't win super great, right?
Mhm.
But it just has so many tight, compact, layered lines. And the fact that, Durandith Magistrate doesn't like ever lock out your commander fully is kind of where the nice place lies. Also, the One Ring was a huge boon for this deck.
Notable non-stacks piece, Drannith Magistrate, pairs really well with the Derevi for all you casual EDH players. Make sure. So the One Ring. Yeah. Oh, true. Yeah, double tapping One Ring might be an okay thing to do in this game.
At minimum, right? This deck it's a green deck, right? So you're like, all right, cool. Like I'm gonna swing in with all my elves and stuff, or I have a Mockingbird clone of a creature, right? And you're like, all right, cool. I hit in with 3 things in the air. All right, I tapped One Ring earlier for 1. Now untap, tap it for 2. All right, in response to the next untap, tap it for 3. All right, in response, they're drawing like 10 cards a turn. Yeah. Derevi says for each thing that deals combat damage. It's not even per player, right?
Oh, it's
like every
each. Holy. All right. I might have a deck to try playing. Yeah. That sounds heinous.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good deck. I think realistically, 9 times out of the 10, it's probably in the trickle down tier, just because I would be ambitious if I said the average pilot could really pilot it to its maximum capacity.
How many turns do you think it takes you to clock the Derevi pilots, as opposed to, like the Kinnan pilots? It's like by that first Kinnan activation, how many lights are on upstairs. How's it different? Is it different for Derevi?
I've done turn 1 Derevi clocks.
You immediately identified.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually when they just kind of don't do anything in the first turn in a mass mana producing deck, and then like also clearly don't have another game plan.
If their plan is like, this is a good commander, I'm sure it'll work out.
But that's also been wrong too, right? Because the person who won that tournament that I was at also did literally first 2 turns of the game just sandbag something in their hand, and clearly like was sandbagging some good stuff. But it was one of those things where I was like, what is happening in this game, right? But there's also, once again, the tournament winner of this large event, right? So like there's levels. There's clocks for sure. There's definitely being able to clock the sort of ceiling floor potential of players. But I think sometimes you can get the read wrong too.
All right, then let's push on to Kenny G. Kenrith, the Returned King, yet another 5-color pile, but oh my god, you can activate abilities. I hear this is what's called an outlet.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely that. It's hard to say with Kenrith, because Kenrith is called the soup commander of CEDH, because you can do anything with this guy. I've seen Turbo Kenrith. I've seen Creature Combo Kenrith. I've seen Bard Control Kenrith. I've seen Turbo Hermit Druid Kenrith. I've seen Stacks Kenrith. I've seen Reanimator Kenrith. I cannot be clear enough that there's so much ambiguity with this commander. I find that the average Kenrith pilot will be more competent than the average, like, Najeela pilot, per se, right? But that's just because of the amount of flexibility Kenrith gets them. And even if somebody is not the best pilot, Kenrith is so customizable that they will make a deck that feels comfortable for them. And in my opinion, that allows them to overperform. But I think like the slightly faster, but still capable of pivoting to mid-range Kenrith is really the most potent one right now, right? Like you can do the ad nause thing, but also just like, hey, baked in, here's some creature combos that you gave me a window. Done, game's over, right? And it's a lot harder to interact with than the Nause or the Breach or whatever it might be,
Right. Okay, that kind of sounds like Hegel King to me.
I think so,
if I'm going to put words in your mouth. But, you have to, as someone on YouTube mentioned, JMS Serena's, there is that moment of, oh, what the fuck are they about to do? That's always going to destabilize you a little bit versus, somebody might be cooking with Tivit, but it's all just like different amounts of paprika they put in the Kraft mac and cheese. You know what Tivit's going to do. You know what Yuriko's going to do. You know what Kinnan's going to do. Kenrith, you're like, All right, man. Please play something really declarative in these first two turns so I can understand what's happening. Honestly, the one I was probably most or second most excited to go over in this list, we have His Moistness Glarb Calamity's Augur, which I know that you have been enjoying recently.
Yes. I'm deciding whether I'm bringing this or Blue Farm to a tournament this weekend. So fun little side story about that. I have only ever played Blue Farm in a tournament one time, and it was in Texas in an event run by the same group I'm going to this weekend. So part of me was like, it'd be kind of funny if my deck list was called "I Only Play Blue Farm in Texas," which I do think is pretty fun. But at the same time, I had so much fun with Glarb last weekend that I'm like, I could just keep playing Glarb.
I could just Glarb on him.
Yeah,
dude, I love auguring. I looked at a Glarb list in preparation for this, and the primer was just like, yeah, man, play lands, cast spells. It's a great fucking time. And it was the most just like hard land drops I've ever seen in a CEDH deck. And most of the primer wasn't even about combos. It was just like, hey, fun fact about Magic, land drops are pretty good. Glarb lets you hit land drops off the top so you can only draw good cards. That's pretty good. And I was like, what in the fucking fundamentals is happening here? I expected there to be some deep weirdness, but most of the deck was like, hey, we play this one board wipe that wipes 2 mana. We play Culling the Weak, and I play a bunch of greedy mana dorks, so we duck that whole fucking board wipe. Isn't that cool?
For me, it's probably just going to stick in the trickle down tier, not because it's not good, but more so the fact that like it is. I think this is a skill testing deck. You know.
Yeah, you're assured enough of your own skills that you know it's going to be a good fight, but one that you are confident in.
Yeah, exactly.
I like someone in chat said Glarb is simultaneously completely game winning and also doesn't really do anything.
That's so true, dude. It really is. It's like that card does absolutely nothing. And as I said, like I would feel very weird. Like a friend of mine pathed my Glarb in like a pickup game we were playing, and I was like, really? like you can't really think that's the best use of this removal right now. And they were like,
when this Najeela comes down, you'll feel otherwise. Like there's always a much more threatening creature. Can we get claps in chat? Triple Mango Thread is here, who is my YouTube editor. So if you like any videos that have come out recently, or the video that will come out of this one, you like Mango's work. So please thank them appropriately. Get the fuck back into the basement. I don't know who let you get to a computer with outside internet access, but it wasn't me. We have next Angel Mommy Atraxa Grand Unifier, which I'm assuming has to be. I refuse to believe anything interesting is going on here. I feel like this has to be, card in hand, not draw card, trigger Smothering Tithe. Tasty.
I do really, it's Atraxa's pretty like, hey, do you like those play patterns of Tymna and Thrasios, but you really hate having 2 boring card draw commanders in the command zone? Well, what if you have 1 really big boring card draw commander in the command zone?
So is this down in like Trusting Farts, where you can be asleep for 3 turns and then you have to start paying attention to what Atraxa is doing, or do you need to be playing cop to stop them from getting the dream set up?
Nah, I think they can, like any Sans Red mid-range deck, they can have a good start, right? They can have like a Ranger Captain into a Aristic Smothering Tithe, but like any deck that has blue and white and black is capable of those exact starts as well, right? So Atraxa, I don't think deserves any more respect than those other options, right? Except for with the food chain option, as I've said, right? So that's really about it. So sometimes it doesn't feel as farty, but like it's probably there. Right now I think it's the safest time to be like, yeah, this deck's fine.
You're playing CEDH. You're here. All right. Next we have the other set of Grixis boys, Malcolm Vial Smasher, which I've actually played before.
Hell yeah.
And I have no strong opinions because that deck was holy shit, cards are good. That deck was, I played the One Ring as quickly as possible. I assembled Thoracle Consult, and the Karakushima player won on the end step before mine, and I cried.
Grixis Pirates is solid right now. It's just a really good list, puts up numbers, does its checks out of work at the end of the day and goes back to its wife, right? But it's actually doing better than like Rograkh in the current metagame because it has this creature combo component to it, right? Like you can do the Grixis stuff and you can go fast and you can do all that, Necro and Ad Nauseam and all those things, but it has that Glinthorn Buccaneer combo that's just like, hey, by the way, we can be ready for the turbo plan, but at any time there's a 2-card creature combo with the commander, right? It's pretty good. There's times where someone's playing a Malcolm File Smasher hand and then they just sort of do nothing for a large part of the game because they didn't, they were basically like, I trust in my top deck, and then they didn't get anything good because math didn't math there, When you survive the first 3 turns against the deck, your odds of winning against it are pretty high in comparison to where they might have been previously,
Because it's not a card extruder. It's not as good as just like, it's good at, holy fuck, this Malcolm text is ridiculous. But if you get past the point where having 5 mana is going to be like, I have 7 cards and 5 mana, you all explode. It's like, okay, they have some treasures, but they have 2 cards in hand and they have not stuck Rhystic Study this game.
Yes, that's exactly where that deck just goes.
So like is this like transitions from Deep Clencher Kegel King to lower after you've survived those critical turns?
Yeah, I think it's one of those decks that's, I think it starts at like a high Kegel and then it just really like there are times where I have played against pilots who I'm like, oh, you did not go for your card advantage whatsoever. All right, you're living in fart zone for like a solid portion of this game.
I can go make some tea, circle back, see what you've done a little bit later.
Yeah.
And then coming up to the final deck that we're going to be doing today is Nixilis Captive Kingpin. Who, what a motherfucker this guy is.
Yeah.
For me, he's always been the like most fun card I could never justify putting in a casual deck because he just immediately haunts you. If you put him in your like silly pinger deck, you're like, oh my god, I have a 10-9 trampler and effectively 10 cards in hand for the next turn. I guess I win. Sorry.
I think it's playable, right? Like it's capable of making top cuts. Wow, there's so many times where this deck is just absolutely stepped on its own dick.
Well, it's like it's 4 mana, 4 mana to tell you exactly what it has to do to win, which not many of the other commanders have done that. Or maybe not to win, but like 4 mana to tell you exactly what it wants to do for a lot of its advantage.
Yep. It's like, you can disrupt Ob, and even if Ob for some reason doesn't get removed, right? Like I've seen a lot of Ob players who are like, I have enough power, I'll take out this one player, and the other 2 are like, oh my god, thank you, they had all the interaction. Like,
oh, thank you for getting that fucking cop, dude. Anyway, Breach?
Exactly. It really lost a lot of gas. It's playable now still. Don't get me wrong, but like, I for sure am going to assume that is a free spot at the table more often than anything else. Yeah.
All right, so I'll put them there. We have someone on YouTube saying, forgot the #1 best commanders, Paco and Haldan. Kevo, we can't even scroll to them on EDH Top 16.
Hello, Helios. Thank you for reporting for Goo. Also, you're on the committee, right, Ian?
Yes, I believe I've been inducted into is it just the Gooning Committee?
It's the Gooning Reclamation Committee. Thank you very much. Right. Notably different from the Gooning Committee.